Begin by removing the left side panel by turning the quarter turn fasteners. Then use a 10mm socket to remove the right panel. Next is the seat, which is held on by two 12mm bolts. If you have the seat strap, then there are an additional 2 Allen bolts behind the side panels to remove. Pull the seat backwards and then up. The fuel tank shrouds can be removed with 3 5mm Allen bolts. To get around these hoses, rotate the left shroud to separate. Move the hose clamp to the fuel line and make sure the petcock is off. To prevent marring the hose, use soft tools or insert rubber into your pliers. Have a towel ready for fuel. Mine happened to be dry. Next, remove the 10mm fuel tank bolt and washer, and the hose cap should be removed as well. First, move the back end of the fuel tank up, then pull back. And be careful of the petcock when setting the tank down. At the front of the bike, remove the 2 bolts holding the Evap canister. Then pull the hose out of the bracket. On the other end, near the air filter, remove this clamp and hose. To remove this hose, which snakes behind the frame, a clasp must be opened, and this can be done using a flathead. Then bend this flexible hose bracket out and push off the Evap purge control valve. This valve connects at 2 locations on the carburetor, one on the top near the intake boot and one on the bottom. Pull the hoses out to free up the valve. Now, time to remove the metal tubing where our block-off plates will be installed. There are 4 Allen bolts in total that can be reached using a 1/4-inch ratchet with an extension. For the last bolt here, the oil line had to be pulled slightly to make some space. The pair control valve is held onto a bracket by 2 nuts, and at the top of the motor is a clip being held on by an 8mm bolt. The fuel tank hose going to the Evap canister should be removed next so that the canister and purge control valve can be set aside. We need to remove one more hose from the carb to free up the remaining parts. This hose at the T-junction should be removed. And this will allow most of the remaining parts to be uninstalled. Now the bracket can be removed. On the cylinder there are 2 gaskets. Make sure they didn't fall out when removing the metal hoses. Match up the block-off plates and thread the bolts by hand. Then tighten down with a ratchet. To remove the last bracket, first take off the 2 nuts at the frame mount. Then remove the bracket and reinstall the nuts. Torque them down on the nut side. The bottom one's easy to get to with a torque wrench, but the top one I had to use a box wrench to tighten up. Now it's time to plug the open airways. First, remove the plastic insert at the air box and replace with a solid plug. Then use 2 plugs at the top of the carb as shown, one of them being at this T-junction. Here are those 2 locations with the appropriate plugs, and a final plug on the bottom. That's 3 total plugs on the carb. There's 1 hose clamp that needs to be closed. Line up the fuel tank brackets with the rubber points on the frame and slide them into place. Reconnect the fuel cap breather hose and connect the fuel line. 1 bolt for the fuel tank, and then reinstall both shrouds. Position the seat and push forward to allow the tab to move into position, and tighten up the 2 seat bolts. Finally, you can install your side panels and go for a test ride. This modification removed all popping on deceleration when I went out for a 20-mile test ride. So far, no complaints, and the bike is idling really well. Thank you for watching. Take it easy out there and ride safe.